Perfect. All right. Good morning. Um, we'll let people in as they come in, but I want to be respectful of y'all's time. Again, we just want to kind of do a quick office hours and give you some reminders before the final report is due in a week. We planned to do this last week, but we had some just communication wires crossed. So we actually were on the Zoom and we're like, well, where's everybody? And realized we didn't send y'all the invite. So we quickly pivoted and so we are doing a training today and we will send the recording out later this week and we'll also send it to the sub grantees so they can kind of know what we're doing. We still want to y'all build the relationship and they know what y'all know and understand why you ask for the things you ask for. So that's what we're working on with this training and the next training that we'll have, and that date will be coming out soon for fiscal year 26 external evaluator training. All right, so we're going to get into it. So of course, Linda Williams did my PowerPoint, and we're just going to kind of follow along, and we will kind of give insight as we go along. So this is the unleashing the power of your data. We're going to talk about 21 APR, easy reports, final reports, and collecting data. Not a lot on 21 APR because that data is not going to be complete for this year, but we're going to touch on it. So, getting ready for the final report. Obviously, this document aims to document program implementation and achievement, evaluate student growth and outcomes, identify strengths and areas of improvement, demonstrate accountability and compliance, because obviously this is a requirement from the Department of Education and ALSDE, and celebrate the success and engagement in the community. And then by weaving together that data, the narratives, reflections, this report tells a story and paints a picture of how the 21st century program enriches the lives of students and their families while paving the way for future success. This looks at the data to create a quality final report. So I'm gonna weave in some extra things because y'all are getting the firsthand. I am learning. I'm in my last evaluation class in my PhD program. So we are really like we're talking about logic models tomorrow. So we're really in the meat of it. And I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna get to update this process a little bit more every year. So when we're looking at the final report, I think I read a report yesterday and it was on 21st century program and it pretty much looked at the longitudinal aspects of it. And we've talked about that before, but for a few of y'all, you have cohort 16 grants. And for those cohort 16 grants, they've been 3 years. So how in this final report are you comparing their first year, second year, third year growth? Because some research that I read yesterday talked about the the distance between like regular students and 21st century students wasn't that vast, but the longitudinal of it showed the growth of after school program students. So I want to make sure that we're focusing on that. If you've been there externally evaluated, if you're now a cohort or you now have a cohort 26 and they were 17, you possibly have kids who have been in 21st century from kindergarten to some of our programs up until high school. So you could, kind of tap in or figure out how you can tap into some of that research to figure out how you can link the students and follow them longitudinally, across and show our retention rates, because that's another thing that our final report doesn't exactly say, but this is where you have the latitude to make this report your own. So, talking about quantitative data, numbers. So I want you to look at these pictures outside of GEPR data because again, GEPR data, what we have from Power School that was correctly inputted, it is an easy report, but it's not 100% of the students. It is possibly not even 50% of the students because there are a lot of errors in the data that we receive. So we want you to make sure that you're telling them ahead of time. You shouldn't be telling them this week that you want this data. You should have told them in the beginning. So we're also prepping for next year. What are the data points that you should be asking them to start gathering? And what are things that they know of the program that will be helpful too? So quantitative data, and these are all examples. You could have more, you could have less, do not have significantly less. Student enrollment and attendance, total student number of students served, that's an easy report. Average daily attendance is an easy report. Attendance rate by site, grade levels, and demographics is an easy report. Number of attendees. Annual performance is where you're going to get iffy, an easy report, but that does not mean that you can't get these data points from your grantees. So pre and post assessment scores in reading and math. I know some of y'all make sure that you try to tell them that they should do pre and post test. That could be the test that the schools give, and that could also be a test that they give on their own. It does not matter, but it gives another option for data that can be measured to say students' progress. Percentage of students showing academic involvement. Uh, Okay. Standardized test scores, comparison before and after, and you can do that in Easy Report, but that they might have to enter those test that scores into Easy Report for you to see that because we don't receive actual test scores from GEPRA. So, be fair warning them that these are things that you're going to need from them outside of Easy Report pulling it, but give them plenty of time to get this information and not asking for. We've seen a lot of people asking for data in the last month, and I'm like, it is too late. You are bombarding them with multiple things that while they're already having to do multiple things for 21st century. Report card grade improvement in core subjects. We have had a lot of sub grantees who have been putting the grades into Easy Report throughout the year, and we've been telling them, if your original RFA, you said you were going to compare report card grades, then you should be putting that in easy report because Power School does not provide us with the raw grades. Power School will provide us with a first and a last, and that's it. So just making sure that you're telling them exactly what you need from them ahead of time and trying to utilize some of the things that they already have. So that it's not a complete heavy lift, but I promise you, if you don't tell me until the last month that you need these things, I'm looking at you cross-eyed and between all the other things that I have going on. So just giving them a list of things that you'll need from them. And when you talk to them in the beginning, makes it a lot easier for our program directors and our site coordinators. Behavior and social outcome, the number of disciplinary incidents before and after participation. That's a GEPRA thing, but it's not necessarily going to be in GEPRA. So that's something that they could be collecting aside from GEPRA. I know some of the schools have different reports that they can pull outside, for different people. What is that report called, Linda Williams? Do you remember? I want to say SIP or something like that, but they have access to different reports, their program directors, to be able to pull to give you some behavior insights.
It's student incident report is what it's called.
Sir,
Sir.
like
Mhm.
SIP, sir.
Student.
That's something that they could be pulling for you. Thank you, Sarah. Percentage of students who improved in homework completion and class participation. That could be from your teacher surveys, but again, that's a push to them to make sure that they are completing the teacher surveys because the teacher surveys were completed in two different times this school year. So they were completed the fall or the school year and the summer. So just making sure that they understand that you utilize that data during your final reports. Family engagement and family and community engagement, number of family events hosted, that's going to be in easy reports, and there should be a role or attendance record in easy report for that. The number of parents, guardians participating in events, that's going to be in there too. The number of community partnerships established or maintained, that can be put in easy report, but they don't always put it in there. So that's a list that they should have though for 21st century. Program activities and staffing, the number of activities offered, whether it's STEM, art, sports, and tutoring, that's an easy report. The number of instructional hours provided, that's an easy report. Staff and student ratio, that is not an easy report per se. The number of students that attended that day are an easy report, but the number of staff may or may not be correct for that particular day. But generally, they do have staff student ratio forms that they complete regularly to give you an idea of what their student staff ratio is. Professional development hours completed by staff, there is a place that they can put that in easy report, but it is not mandatory. So some people have started using it and some people don't. But professional development hours is something that they have to keep up with. So it should be something that they have on hand. Again, just preparing them for what you're going to be looking for before you need it. So if you ask me for something, I think my external evaluator used to give me a list of things as soon as the school year started that I should be collecting for the year. When summer came, she would send that list back and be like, hey, send it to me within a month. And so it was always kind of a ahead of time thing where I knew it was coming. And if I waited to the last minute to pull it, well, that was on me because she gave me fair warning for it. But preparing your grantees, sub-grantees for the information that you're gonna need from them is gonna be the best bet. So qualitative data is going to be, for me, it's always the warm and fuzzy. So student feedback, so testimonials from students about their experiences, observation on student engagement and enthusiasm, stories of individual student growth and success. We have had some really good news articles and news stories for several of our programs in the last couple of months, because of the funding stuff. So we had, was it Walker County? I think they were in the New York Times talking about their program and how the parents felt like it helped and the principal. So there were a lot of good testimonials in those articles. Gaston City had some press done during that time. A lot of our programs are trying to reach out and advocate for their programs. So that's good parent and student and stakeholder, so principals and admin, good feedback that you can include in your final report. Teacher and staff observations, teacher feedback on student progress and behavior changes, staff reflections on programs, strength and goal and challenges, effectiveness of professional development opportunities. So these are all things that you could be gathering from just general observations. Remember, I said when you go and do these observations, I'm expecting for you to stay at least 2 hours during your evaluation observations. But during this time, you should be talking to staff. You should maybe do some interviews. You could set it up ahead of time to maybe do what's the word I'm looking for? A focus group with some parents, or maybe do a focus group the next time. And this could just be a quick 30 minute something. Do a focus group with parents or do a focus group with some teachers in your program, and that could be staff or teachers, or if you have an opportunity to talk to some administrative staff when you're in the schools, those interviews, focus groups, um, and surveys. Surveys could be surveys that you create, and surveys could also include the surveys that are in Easy Report. You might be able to glean some additional information from surveys that you created based on your evaluation questions. So just be thinking about that when you're thinking about the qualitative data, parent testimonials on program impact. That New York Times article did a really good job of like the parent talking about how the program really helped her, and not have to worry while she was at work, and just things like that. The impact is what we're looking for. But we're also looking for a truthful vantage point of the programs. So we're not looking for the whole thing to be warm and fuzzy and they have no issues. We see a lot of our observation forms when you send them in, because now you have to send it in the after the fall observation, and it has to be signed by you and the program or the site coordinator. So we see a lot of those, and you look down the list and they're all fours, and I'm like, Well, if they're all fours, then what did they have to improve on? Like how what did you tell them during the group? What recommendations are you making if you're saying that this program is perfect or needs no improvement? So think about that when you're going um, to the sites to do observations and when you're completing the observation forms. If you wrote a four and then the notes that you said basically said that you saw an incident with a teacher and a student, well, then how was that a four? So think about that. We're not looking for perfection in our programs. We're looking for growth. So if the first year you went, they were a two, and then the next year they were a three, or the first year they were a two, the next year they were a two, and you gave them some recommendations, and then the last year they were a three, then great. That shows growth. That shows how they implemented some of your recommendations or they implemented some changes to make their program better. We're not looking for perfect evaluation reports to show perfect programs. We don't have any perfect programs. We want our programs to continuously be progressing. Now, we're not looking to bash them, but when we're seeing things, y'all are the eyes and ears of 21st century in this respect. So when you're seeing something, you should be reporting it accurately and then trying to make sure that you're giving them recommendations or recommending that they do some PD or contacting us and saying, hey, I noticed that some of my programs are having issues with XYZ. Can the State Department and CPI offer some additional PD on these topics? That's some of the purposes of the external evaluation that I want us to really tap into in the next couple of, well, in the next year to make sure that we're accurately evaluating our programs. So, community partnerships and impact, stories of successful collaborations with community organizations, and that doesn't necessarily have to be during an observation. If you have talked to your sub-grantee and they have told you about this partnership that they have that is so great and they help with all of these different things that you have not seen in 21st century or that it's just a successful partnership and you've noticed that they have a longevity or something like then you can reach out to that partner through email and then maybe have a phone call interview with them or have a Zoom interview with them so that you can include some of those stories of successful collaborations into the report. Examples of volunteer involvement and support. If your program had a volunteer that got an ACEA award, that should be something that should be highlighted in your program. Or maybe they have a volunteer or they have different things that you're seeing in their program that you feel like they should be nominating themselves or somebody should be nominating them to receive awards for. Encouraging them to do that. Or if you see that and I know we have some evaluators who do this, you see that they're doing something great and you go ahead and suggest it to some of your other sub grantees, or you suggest that they, sorry, the word just lost me, that they go ahead and do a session at ACEA on this information so that they can share it out. Those are things that we want to be gleaned from our final reports. And when you do that, actually adding it to your final report, because I have heard from some sub-grantees that their external evaluator made some great recommendations to them, just an aside conversation. And I never saw it in the report. And I'm like, but this was great. Like, why didn't they put this in the report so that we can show the impact of the programs. We can show that the external evaluation is useful and necessary because we want this to not just be a document that y'all create, y'all are paid for, and then it's shelved. We want them to actually go through this with their staff. We want them to share with their stakeholders. We want them to be able to look back or look at it and see for the recommendations and say, okay, how can we put this in place? That's exactly what the State Department does with the 21st century evaluation that comes from Troy. That's the same thing that we want the sub-grantees to do with their external evaluation report. We don't just want this to be something that you check the box and do. We want this to be something that they actually use. But it's also going to take some communication and relationship building from y'all with the sub-grantees because yeah, I'm telling them till they blue in the face, but we need to make sure that everybody's on the same page and giving the same information. So program activities and staff, number of activities offered. That feels, I think that's a typo. Or did I switch? Hold on. Yes, I switched. Um, Program strengths and challenges, success stories highlighting program effectiveness, areas identified for improvement, curriculum, scheduling, and resources, and lessons learned and recommendation for future programming. So again, those recommendations that I just talked about. So Easy Report, this is the website for Easy Report because we're working on the 24-25 year for evaluation. You're working in 24-25 year for the school year, but then you're working in 25-26 for the summer. Is that correct, Linda Williams?
That is correct. That is correct.
All right.
And
So
why we
your
put,
username, go ahead.
that's the reason why we put 24-25 because that's the school year that they're including in the report. But we're doing the summer, you're correct, summer of 25-26.
Correct. So most of your data, so if you are looking at the 21 APR data and you can look at the activities that report, um, that is all in there and that will be in Easy Report 24-25. The outcomes that we do have, grades and other things that they've already entered, that's going to be in the 24-25 Easy Report also. So the username should be your email. The password has been sent to you. If you have had an email or login in any of the past sites, 23, 24, 22, 23, then that email should continue to work. And if you don't remember your password, you could just click the button to ask it to send you a new password and it'll send you a temporary password. You don't necessarily need us for that. Now, if you try to reset your password and it does not send you one, then send us an email and we will make sure that you are in there. Or if you are in contracts with a new grantee and you need access to additional sites or additional sub grantees because you have a contract with them, then yes, you do need to contact us for us to update that information. So when you're going to reports, you're going to go to grantee home. You're going to go to reports and then you're going to click the 21 APR report. So this is the side panel that we're showing you. So when we're looking in these report, I'm generally only working on that side panel. I don't use the tiles. Feel free to use the tiles, but the instructions that we're going to give you are always going to be based on that sidebar originally. All right, so 21 APR reports. So the activity, staffing, and participation reports is what's going to give you a lot of your demographic stuff, a lot of your how many days did they attend, that type of thing. What are the actual activities? What are the activity categories? That's an easy report, and that is information that is gleaned from what they have put in easy report over the year. So you're going to go in, click on 21 APR report, school year 24-25, choose your cohort or grant, select all activity, staffing, and participation, generate report, and then refer to this data in the final reports. Refer to the data in the final report. So we are seeing a lot of, we give y'all a template just so that we can get the basic information, but we are looking for you to glean more than just the basic information. The template was updated this year by Amanda Ryland, our 21st century administrator. And so make sure that you are using the correct template. So if you are using the template from last year, that's not the correct template. The template was sent out and it's on our website for this year. So make sure you're using that. And make sure that when you are putting I'm gonna go to the next one. If you're putting a chart or something into your report, or if we have a chart in there that says the number of students or whatever, you should give me some information on that chart. You shouldn't just pop the chart up there and then not actually explain it. So if that means in the next section you should be referring back to table 1.2, then refer back to table 1.2. Like I need for us all to refer to some academic research so we can remember how we're supposed to be using these data points and how we're referring to them when we're inputting them into final reports because we're seeing a lot of charts and just go on with no reference to the chart. That's not what we're looking for with this. People who read this, it needs to be understandable from anybody's perspective. It shouldn't be that you put charts on here and you expect for people to interpret the charts. You should add some interpretation to the charts, to the information that you write when you put in the charts. So this is what your dashboard is going to look like. There's a lot of information that can be gleaned from the dashboard. And if you notice, there is a little print box up here on the top where you can print it. So this creates the pretty charts and all of that some people like to put in their reports if you want to put a pretty chart in there. If you want the raw data, then you're looking for a report. So the dashboard is going to give you the attendance, the demographics, the average daily attendance, the activities, the staffing, and the outcomes. It's going to give you that for the year, just at a glance, in a sense. So the reports from Easy Report, so you can provide, it's going to provide student information, which includes basic demographics, their contact details. Remember, do not put identifiable information for the students into the report. That's a purple violation. So when you're pulling the reports, it will ask you if you want it by name or by count. You can say that you want it by count because you don't want the students' actual info, their identifiable information. It's going to give you special needs information if the school put it in. So if the site didn't put in that they received special education, then it's not going to be in the report, but that is a function of Easy Reports. It's going to give you the day school grades and attendance, their test scores, pre and post assessments if they put it in. Um, it's going to give you attendance summary by site and by session. It's going to give you enrolled activities, activity attendance, activity engagement levels, the monthly average daily attendance, and participation by site, participants count by site. It's going to give you staff names and roles, staff schedules, and staff qualifications. So you can answer that question about turnover. It's going to give you outcome data with GERPA indicators, state assessment, grade point average, and in-school suspension, and then survey data, student surveys, parent surveys, and staff surveys. Now, when I talk about the GEPRA measures, I'm telling you that information is not complete for 23-24. It is something in there, but it is not complete. And there are some sub-grantees who don't have any information in there. Fair warning. But you can go back and look at the previous year, so 22-23's GEPRA information and glean some information from that. If you have an older cohort, if you have a 16 or a 17 cohort, because that information was turned in March to the DOE and it is complete. Like they had to go in and actually add in their information that was missing. They had to go in and make comments on why it was missing. So that's good information that you can add to your report and just go ahead and say if there's cohort 17 and 16, this is still pertinent for them. So you can go ahead and say, hey, here's an update for the 23-20 or 22-23 GEPRA information that was available as of whatever date you see in Easy Report, and then give an update on that if that information was not available, since that information was not available last year. So that was one thing that I wanted to point out because that's still some data that was missing last year that could be an update in this report. So you can go in and do that. You should have access with the same login to that older Easy Report website. If you cannot access it after you ask to change your password, send us an email and we'll make sure that you do have access because it's still open to view. So data sources, your site coordinator, your program coordinator, those are your stakeholders. They are your main source of um, data. They are the person that you should be talking to on a regular basis. You should have that meeting in the beginning to talk about things that they would like to glean from this report because they might have a slight, question that they want to be answered that would be great to figure out with this final report. I'm gonna always talk about one of our sub grantees who they figured out, and this was not in their final report, but they had an event celebrating their their programs and how long they had been offering 21st century, and they actually honored all of their administrators. Well, in doing so, they talked about how when they pulled the data, they realized that a large percentage, like 70%, I think, of their people who were program or site coordinators ended up becoming school administrators. So I was so excited to hear that because that was not anything that we asked for in the final report, but that's a good data point that they could have provided to put into the final report. So things that they might, want to know, that's something that their federal program director pulled and figured out with amongst themselves, but that's something that could be added to a 21st century final report through conversations with your stakeholders because they're your main, you want them to be utilizing this data. So, making sure that you're having conversations with them about their program, changes that are going on in the 21st century or have gone on throughout the year. They're the people that are going to be able to tell you. They receive my emails every week, so they know what's going on as far as changes or data that is available and data is not available. So making sure that you're communicating with them regularly. And I know a lot of y'all are. I feel like the people that get on my Zoom calls are I'm kind of preaching to the choir because literally I hear from y'all because y'all email me and say, hey, well, my person told me that such thing changed. How is this going to impact the final reports? And so I know that y'all are communicating. Kudos for y'all for doing that. But they're your main data source that you could need to be communicating with regularly. The surveys, interviews, from all the people. And they may or may not do those in Easy Report. So if you want to glean that information, that's something that you should nudge them on in the beginning. They generally do student interviews and teacher interviews, but they may or may not. So just making sure that you're telling them from the beginning, hey, I'd like to see what this survey says. And looking at the questions in Easy Report to see if they're exactly how you want them to be, because you can go in and add some extra questions if you would like to. Sorry, every time I move this, sorry, this is not wanting to like me today. Okay. Observations, don't forget the 2 hours or more, the program strengths and challenges that you observed, lesson plans, ASIP scores, the actual grant, the RFP should be the base of your final report. You should be looking in there. We have staff turnover and we have administrative turnover sometimes. And sometimes the site coordinator has not seen the RFA. So you knowing what as the external evaluator who has been there for more than 1 year should know, hey, well, remember you said, kind of pointing them back to their goals and objectives, what they said in the original RFA. The family and community engagement piece, assessment data, the pre and post test, benchmark assessment, star reading, star math, those are good assessments that they can pull a report on at the school level quickly. That could be something that could be used for the pre and post test. Student grades could be used for pre and post test. And the rest of this is GEPRA stuff. And if you noticed it, I crossed it out. It is optional in your new RFA. I've had a lot of external evaluators who have contacted their sub grantees in the last couple of weeks and said, hey, I need such and such a thing because the report says it, but I'm having to remind all parties that it says optional because we know that the GEPRA information is not complete at this time and we don't want to hold it up. We want the reports to come on in. So we told y'all last year when we did the initial meetings, hey, don't focus on the GEPRA stuff. Find some other data sources that you can use for this report. Now, if you look on there and 75% of your students have sent in things or you have stuff for the GEPRA stuff, feel free to use what's in there. But I'm telling you, your best bet is to go back and do an update for 22, 23 and just add that to the report so that you can use some GEPRA data if you'd like to. But the GEPRA data stuff is optional. So every section that you see that is optional, it is really optional. It is, I'm not trying to do a gotcha, but make sure that if you're skipping that section that you have adequately provided other data sources and information in your final report. We are going to be sticklers on sending back and asking for additional updates when, if you did not complete the final report in the new template, or if your data sources seem weak, if you tell us things like, oh, the program looks great, and you have no data to back it up by telling me, 75% of parents thought that the program was great, or, a block quote to tell me a parent thought the program was great and how they used it, or, there are different data points that you should be referencing when you're telling me the program is doing great. And we would like to see it. Let's see. So this is one of the reports that you can pull. So this was a grades report. So you can go in and there is a list function, but we don't want you to use that. So she's specifically saying use the aggregate or the comparison. So the comparison is really good, and they have descriptions on here to tell y'all what these reports are for. So the comparison, it displays the comparison of report card grades in terms of count of students who improved, did not change, or decline. Those are the exact measures that you're looking for that will give you information to put into your final report. So that's the percentage. I've had a couple of external evaluators who will then send me the report and say, well, how am I supposed to figure out what the percentages are? Well, Easy Report is not going to give you the percentage. That is when we want you to use your graduate level statistics class to figure out what is the percentage of students that improved, did not change, or declined. So if that's something that you think you cannot do, let us know. We will take you off the list, because the graduate level statistics part of the need for the evaluator, it's not just a recommendation. It is really something that we need you to use, because I need you to glean some information from this data. So this is the Gepper stuff. So if you notice at the top, can compare 22, 23 to 23, 24, but 24, 25 is not available. So just be mindful of that. You can go back into the old ones and pull it. And that will give you 2 years of a comparison, because that's how it is in the past system. If you need help with that, send me or one of the lenders an email and we'll point you in the direction of that if it's not in this PowerPoint. So, but the things that are compared and like that we continue to forget, it's only for certain grades. So the academic achievement is looking for the reading, language arts state assessment, and the math state assessment. That's for grades 4th through 8th. All the other grades, we're not necessarily looking for their state assessments, and so it is not in Easy Report. So if you serve elementary school and you want to focus on, you probably shouldn't focus on state achievement, because you're only going to be showing that data for grades 4 and 5. But if I serve middle school and I know that all the middle school grades are in the gap for academic achievement, then I would focus on state assessments. For grade point average, I wouldn't focus on this if I was elementary school, because it's only for grades 7th through 8th and 10th through 12th. That's reading, language arts, and math grades. If they put it in their original RFA, then they should have the data and it should be an easy report. But this is the only thing that's asking, these are the only grades that the grades are required for GEPRA. School day attendance is for grades 1 through 12, so everyone. School day attendance is generally going to be in there, because if you come to after school, then you generally came to school. So you can kind of glean information just from the activities and attendance section in Easy Report. So that's in there. Behavior in school suspension, grades 1 through 12, you can glean information on that. I'm telling you from looking at the data, there are not a lot of schools in Alabama who record in school suspension information. Now, mind you, this is what the federal government said to use for behavior. So if your school could pull another report to show actual suspensions or office referrals, and I know there's a report for that too, um, then that might be a better something for you to glean information from, and not from the in-school suspension from GEPRA. But that is a 1 through 12, so everybody has to have it. The teacher surveys is a great something to use for elementary, so because it's grades 1 through 5th, and that's for student engagement and learning, so that all the teachers were supposed to, but that does not mean that that information is totally complete in Easy Report, because I have one sub grantee specifically, I remember They reached out to me really early. They had a teacher that was on maternity leave most of the time when we did surveys, and then they had another teacher who they never filled the spot. So, and they didn't have a regular substitute. So there were no surveys for those students. So there are all type of challenges, and those are things that you could be adding to your report to say the challenges that they faced. But I'm telling you, if you look at the 22-23 easy report, 23-24 easy report, you're going to see the 23-24 easy report, you're going to see where they actually had to complete different reports and type in why they are missing the data. So that's going to be some good information that you can add to your report to say why this information, why they have these gaps in data. So, anybody have any questions? This is the time to ask questions. Please ask questions because I think a lot of y'all have the same questions.
Hey, Erica, let me say this. Some of you all are putting your directions of the template in your report. Please don't put the directions in there. Take them out if you can. It's a Word document, so you should be able to take the directions out because you're writing your report. So make sure you look at that and make sure that your report has a flow to it. And it's painting a picture of what is really happening at that 21st century site.
The other thing to be, before you upload your report, be sure that all of the appendix documents are signed that are supposed to be signed. The observation tools are supposed to be signed by the evaluator as well as the site director or program director, for example. And then there's a signature page. So make sure all of those things that are supposed to be signed are signed.
And also pay attention to the font that you're using. Make it consistent because there's throughout some reports, there's so many different types of fonts. And you can see them, you can see when the font changes. So just try to make it even if you can. If you don't know how to do that, just contact one of us and we can help you. And also with that table of content page, some of you all are having difficulties with that. I promise you, if you call us or you email us, we can help with that. So we're here, we're available for you. So if you have questions or concerns to get you through this process, and like Erica says, you are 1 week out, and guess who's going to send you an email to remind you of that today? That will be me. Because I want to make sure that you all get this in before by the 30th of this month. If you don't want those letters coming back and forth, and we're checking these, and we're especially looking at your recommendations and your findings. So if you have questions, now is the time to ask those questions.
Erica, I have one. First of all, I just want to say y'all are doing a great job. Thank you so much for all of the emails, all of the reminders, all of the help. It's been wonderful. Once we get our reports in, praying that happens for me with some. I'm 80% there, so we'll get it by next week. But once we're done, how soon can we start on the new observations? Because it's such a fluid thing, especially with the new ones. I've had some send me contracts, some not yet. So when does that all need to start? Because I have several and I want to go ahead and get since we've got to be there 2 hours, I got to get mine plugged in soon to get them all done.
And I
So
remember I told y'all the fall reports can start in fall. So you could have started in August.
okay.
We don't have a timeline. The
Well, I
contract
just didn't
decisions
know.
between the schools, that's based on y'all.
Okay, I just didn't know since we had that 31st or the 30th day to get the conflict of interest in. I didn't know what all had to be in your hands before we could literally go into the school. So I want to make sure I was okay.
As long as you know that you don't have a conflict, I'm not stopping you from going out. You can start going out in August because I know a lot of y'all do have a good number of them. So it'll be easier if y'all start in August. If you don't have a conflict, it's not an issue. I've only had so far maybe one one Linda Williams that has had a conflict. But they knew they had a conflict. And
Yes,
so,
they told us, yes, only one, so.
right. So if you
Okay.
know you don't have a conflict, you have the contract in place or whatever with the school, you can start going out or you know that your contract is coming and you're not concerned, you can start going out in August. And then that might give you a fresh eye for, okay, when I saw them in the beginning, they had some issues with staffing or they had some issues with scheduling or whatever. And then by the time I saw them in the spring, they had figured out some things, but then some additional issues had popped up. And then when you see them in the summer, okay, so that'll give you a good reference if you see them August or September.
And so you were talking up front about letting them know ahead of time what data we need. I try to do that in the evaluation report. Is that good? Because that's really the first, when we first go out for the first meeting, I try to go over that entire
Yes,
evaluation report, and that's when I write my questions and what I'll need. And is that still good to do it that way?
that's still absolutely perfect.
Okay.
'Cause I mean, there could be additional measures that come out just based on things that change with 21st century, but in that conversation that you're talking about when you're talking about the evaluation plan, that's when they've already had the meetings. Like we met at mega conference this summer. So we had already had meetings, by the time the fall came to talk about different things with 21st century. We had another in-person meeting, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Something like that, for the people who didn't get to come to mega. So changes or updates in 21st century can be gleaned during that conversation, and maybe some data sources can be added or deleted, but definitely yes, when you're meeting and you're coming up with your questions, you're discussing a logic model, those are times to give the data sources that you like for the year. Yes, ma'am.
And keep in mind, the evaluation plan is going to be due a little bit sooner than it has been, so. But anyway, we'll talk about that at another time and date. But keep that in mind. So November 30th should be the due date this year.
We're gonna try to get y'all the date for our fall training as soon as possible. Not this training, but another training. As soon as possible, because I know we will have some additional, some new external evaluators specifically that will need some training. But we just have a bunch of random things that need to come first. At some point, we do know that a new 21st century grant is coming. We don't know when that's going to be right now, so we're waiting on that and some other things to figure out a date for y'all's training. But for right now, like she said, the evaluation plan is due November 30th. That template has not changed. I need to make sure that.
Yes.
But the evaluation questions and those things, no, that won't change.
I hate to be the only one asking questions,
Mm-mm,
but
go ahead.
with the 25, is there going to be any major shifts, or are we going to be anything different that we need to know that we've not done in the past that will be required in the future? Anything you can give us a heads up on? Because, I like to be prepared. Chance favors a
25,
prepared mind.
26.
Well, I have new ones I haven't met them before. We're
Okay,
just getting ready to
26.
meet. It's I thought it was 25's the first one coming.
25 is the summer, and then so they go with the fiscal year. So October starts Alabama's fiscal year 26.
Okay, well, they're the new ones because
Hmm.
I haven't served any of the ones that got it
Right.
last
We
spring.
only had one summer only site. Well,
Yeah.
one school LEA that did summer only. So they only had one external evaluator. Um,
Anything new, anything different we need to do differently? I know you've already done a great job on the time that we need to spend. That's good, but anything that's going to be different with these newer grants that we need to know about?
the template should reflect the changes for 26. So that should be fine. But I would say to make sure that you go back and read the RFA. For 26, it is significantly different than the previous RFAs. There have been, just little changes since then. If you go back, there's also, our YouTube page. We have a bunch of videos from where we talked about the cohort 26 RFA. So you can look at the RFA, maybe some of the videos. We've had some updates, just sort them by date so that you can see the most recent one, because just the little changes that have been made, we've done videos to talk about it. But that's a good question, Sarah.
And
And Sarah, ask all the questions you can, because you're generally going to ask what everybody else is thinking and they're not going to ask.
And keep in mind, the State Department may look at some of these reports. And if we can catch some of the things that are on here, like, directions, or the not the writing is not aligned, or there's no reference to your tables. So be careful when you're turning in these report. Make sure that, I don't care if you get another set of eyes to read through the report to make sure that it's accurate and correct. Do that. Do what you can, because you still have a week before this report is actually due.
That's a good point. And I try to, I have someone that helps me, but then I also send it to the sites and say, you all go through this with a fine tooth comb and let me know if anything is missing. So we try to double back and make sure we get that. But that's a great point, Miss Linda. We don't want to look like we don't know what we're talking about.
They are reading them. They are noting if they feel like the final report is not strong. You want to make sure that you don't end up on my list of I have to take you off the list and no one can use you. And if your reports are not strong consistently across the board, then that is where you will be. And because I will not be able to let other sub grantees utilize the same service. Somebody asked, when will the RFAs be available in eGap? Tell me, do you mean the new RFA or do you mean cohort 25, 26 in the open part of eGap? Because I'm not sure. Let me think. So the RFA that is coming, I don't know the dates for it yet. Should be soon that it will come, but I know there was some updates, cohort 26. I don't know when the free part of eGap or the open part so that you can see RFAs will be open. I'm going to guess when the new fiscal year starts, but I've been sending out an email, I think, that says they had to update their budget and they had to go in and click a button. So that might be a holdup on why all of cohort 26 is not showing, because they can't just pick a few to show. They have to be able to show all of them at the same time. And so it can't be in revision, and they had to make a revision. So hopefully October, but I am not quite sure. They should all have copies of their RFA though. Any other questions? Judy Manning, you got questions?
She's quiet as a mouse, Eric.
She's quiet and she's gonna call after.
She's gonna get us. Please make sure you all have strong, solid recommendations.
This program is doing great. It's not a recommendation. It's not. I'm sorry. They have to, if that was the case, then don't make the point of that they don't need an evaluator. I'm gonna say that just like that. The reports need to be reflective of they should have an external evaluator. Because if you make that case, you might be making that case that they don't need an external evaluator. I need copies and have been told that I can't get a copy until they are in eGap. Send me an email or call me, and, and I will bless their heart, because they should be in eGap, and let me help, yeah, because they have logins to eGap to see their RFA. But yeah, you need that. Send me an email or call me after this meeting and I will get you access to that. Because yes, I do have access to them. Great question. No questions, Dr. French?
Nope, I see they don't have any questions. Be
No,
sure that
I don't have any questions. I just want to say that um, this is my first time, and I've started out with four and writing those, and just I appreciate today. Uh, it has helped because you don't really know what you don't know or what you need to do until you actually start doing it. And so this today verified that one, I was whether or not I was on the right track with something. Two, something I need to go back and strengthen. So I just appreciate this.
Thank you. Good. That's what we want. That's what we want this to be. We want, a last minute, maybe you should update or yeah. But err
But
on
I
the
do,
side of add the information.
but and I do feel like um, since this was my first year, I feel better going into the second year. We just have to get you the report for this year, and hopefully it will have what you need in it.
Yes. Anybody else? Cheryl Wallace, this might be my first time actually seeing your picture. It's nice to put faces with names. All right. Nobody has any other questions. I'm not gonna hold you. Remember, y'all have our emails, y'all have our phone numbers. We will send this recording out later this week. It'll be on the YouTube page. Every video that we give gets dropped on the YouTube page. So several people have just started following the YouTube page, and it'll send you alerts. And then you can kind of see the updates as they come out to the sub grantees, because we generally try to record them and house them on the website so that it's not just they never heard it. Everybody can go back and watch it at their leisure if they need to. So, but if y'all have questions before the reports are due, let me see. Can you clarify the pay scale for external evaluators with the cohort 26 grants? I cannot, because I have not been told that to create one. I will say, like I said, make sure that your recommendations and your reports are good so that you are proving a point of having an evaluator. Um, Remember last year I said that, I think Amanda had a cap that she wanted the external evaluators to be put at if the grantees made or did the 400, 500,000 for the grants. And I said to make sure that you have a budget to explain why you want this cost to be this cost. If your hourly rate is a certain amount, then put it in there. If your supplies are a certain amount, if your travel is a certain amount, create a budget. I did not say that to make it like y'all are doing something wrong or do a gotcha. I said that to give rationale to why you are requesting the amount you are requesting. That it's not just an obligatory amount that you put in there because you just are greedy and want the 5% of the grant. I don't think that. I think it's a lot to create this report. And it's a lot to do these observations, and there's a lot of knowledge and research that you have to do on the back end or on the front end to be able to provide these reports. But I need for y'all to show it. And unfortunately, when people don't show it, when they just put it in there and don't explain what this means, or don't link different thing, or you give a recommendation that says the program is doing great, then you're not really showing that you put a lot of effort into this. And so it does make it seem like, well, should they have made $6,000 versus $4,000 or whatever. So I don't try to stay on the fiscal side of it because we don't, TPI doesn't contract with y'all for it. Your sub grantee does. I do know that that is the 5% is the cap. That is what is in writing. Um, we don't have many, we had no grants, sub grantees who did the 500,000. So that's not even a concern. We do have some that are maybe, well, it might be 3%, Sarah. I don't know. 5%. See, this is how much I stay in the money amount. I don't. I just want you to do a good job. It's 3 or it's 5. I don't know, whatever it is. But Amanda wanted to cap it at 6,000. So she told the sub grantees that they should cap it at 6,000. But again, if you have there's some grantees who have multiple sites and you had some grantees or some external evaluators, y'all have to do overnight stays. That's additional travel money. Create the budget. Put it in the final report as an appendices so that it is known that this is what the money is spent on. I'm not telling you not to try to get the 3% because I think that this is a lot of work. But I also think if your report does not show that it is a lot of work, then you're proving a case for not needing the 3%. So
Yes, make sure your report is solid. I mean, solid, solid. Because, they're gonna read them, especially if you ask for the full amount. They're going to be
mhm.
read.
But I
Erica,
mean, we're seeing all type of things. I have some grantees who their person is trying to request more than 3% because the sub grantees are new, they've had staff turnover and they didn't know any better. We've had some people who are getting the max 3% and then are also, or in the past, are also trying to get travel costs from their grants, like that's not allowable with 21st century. So just we want to make sure that we stay reasonable and allocable is what Edgar says. That's what we want to do. Somebody's asking a question.
Erica, I was just going to say, after your advice last year, I went ahead and created budgets. If anyone wants to see how I broke it up as an example, I kind of went through and gave each thing that we did a cost value based on how much time and effort. I'll be happy to share that if anybody needs one. It's not that difficult to do, but I think it is important to show accountability, that we're not just grabbing money out of thin air, that we're actually doing something, and this is what we did for the amount that we got it for. So I'm happy to share that if anybody needs it. Um, and there's some of them that I have a negative balance on because I don't get what I feel like I should because their grant doesn't allow for it, and that's okay. I still take them because they're important. And if they don't get a full grant, that doesn't bother me. So it's a give and take. There's some I do get a full 3%, but then there's some, well, I mean, I get 3% on all of them, but some of that it is
They're different
6,000
amounts.
and some of it is
Hmm.
only 4,000. And so am I going to mistreat them even if they're at the northern corner of the state? No, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to do what I got to do to help them and to support them. So to me, it all balances out. I'm not complaining about what we get at all. But I do show it so that like you said, the State Department can see we're not just out there grabbing money. We're actually doing a good job.
Well, like you said, some people, and I mean, the budgets are different this year. So it's literally by student in the cohort 26. That's a big change in cohort 26. You should see that in your contract. The budgets are based on, it's a calculation of how many students they said they were going to serve. It's also a calculation, or it's also a cohort 26 that if they don't serve the amount of students that they're supposed to serve after the first year, they get the first year as a grace. But by the second year, they could be reduced by 75% or by a percentage if they don't have 75% of the students that they said. So just be mindful that will possibly reduce what your contract amount is if they don't meet. So giving them real recommendations for how to maintain their attendance or recruit additional students, these are things that they actually need. They need an evaluation. They need people to help them. So just be mindful of that. That is a big change in cohort 26. And like you said, but we have had external evaluators who decided, oh, well, no, I got to do the same amount of work as as this person is doing, and they're making more money, or this grant has 2 sites and that grant only has 1, and now I have to go to 2 places versus 1, and reminding them, well, you signed up for this. And so if you're dropping them in the middle of the year because of this, then I'm going to have to drop you from the list and no one else can use you. So,
And
but good
don't,
points.
yeah, please watch, because some of you put, the information is not found in Easy Report. Easy Report is not your only source. You have a program director, you have a site coordinator. You got to make sure that you're looking under the right rocks to find this information that you need. Easy Report only contains what they put in it. No more, no less. This is what they put inside of Easy Report. So if Easy Report doesn't have the grades, guess what? They didn't put it in there. There's no comparison. Nobody put any grades in there. So some of these grades and the information that we may be asking for, you're really going to have to become BFF with your program director and your site coordinator, even the principal of that particular school. Because you need this data. Data is important when you're writing a report. So make sure you look outside of the box when you're writing this final report.
Anybody else have questions or comments or suggestions? It's a good time for that too. All right. If not, that's all I have, and I don't want to hold y'all all day. I tried to make this during lunch breaks, essentially. If y'all have questions or anything later, or something pops up later, send us an email or give us a call. We are here to help. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Have a great day.